All right, this is the Hot Hoops Roundtable Google Hangout post Big Three edition. I'm here with a couple of my writers over at hothoops.com, David Ramil and Diego Casada. How's it going, guys?
Doing great.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Hopefully we're going to get Matt Pineda as well on board. Well, I don't know. No, he's still not here. But we're going to go ahead and start right now with let's just deal with what's happened basically. What are your reactions to basically the post decision? And it's been what, 6 days now. It's hard to even digest even today. But Pat Riley has made several significant moves. They look more balanced. But obviously, how can you replace the best basketball player in the world? How do you feel generally about the LeBron's decision and what Pat Riley has been able to do from now on? David, what are your thoughts?
I think as elated as I was following the original decision in 2010, I felt the exact opposite on Friday. I think it was completely shocking for me. Up to the last minute, I was still convinced that he was coming to Miami because I really thought it was the best option for him, and I didn't think that he was going to be able to go back and face those fans and that ownership group that had trashed him as much as they had. So I know it sounds like sour grapes now after the fact, but the reality is I didn't really think he was coming back to Cleveland. And so I was disappointed is putting it mildly. It was a punch in the gut, and I was extremely disappointed. But then just as I was thinking that Miami would, collapse and become a lottery-bound team, I was buoyed by Chris Bosh's signing. And so I had just sent out a text to my brother-in-law saying that if Chris Bosh re-signs with Miami, he will become my favorite player of all time. And not 10 seconds later, he did. And so it was an overjoyous moment for me. And so that was great. I mean, because he really gave hope to the fan base, to the franchise, that they were still committed to winning. And so it was just a really great moment. As bad as the decision 2.0 was, Chris Bosh's signing was great. And then the move since then, I mean, he has built a really balanced team. You said it perfectly. I think this is going to be a great unit. I think it's going to be fun to watch. Not that it wasn't over the last 4 years. It was great and wonderful and historically great. But I think this is going to be a more challenged team, but also one that can meet those challenges. And I'm interested to see how they'll play out throughout the course of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that James honestly dragged it out a little bit too long. And I've seen a little bit on Deadspin and some other sites that when Lee Jenkins was actually being brought in to Las Vegas, that was actually when Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and a bunch of other players or people involved with the Heat were also coming to Las Vegas. So to be honest, it seems like it was a little bit of a calculated move. Woj has been talking about, James going back to Cleveland since 2012. There have always been whispers about this, always rumors. And it's interesting to see how much is going to come out. Is he ever going to fully talk about when he made that choice? So for me personally, I felt like he sort of did drag it down too long, and he sort of led Riley on, which is the one thing that I would criticize him for. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that it was a great 4-year run. He gave us 2 MVP seasons, 2 NBA championships.
Oh, there it is. Diego,
yeah.
We're back. Yeah, you got stuck there. Could you repeat maybe your last talking point?
Okay, I'm sorry. So I mean, he did give us 4 great years, 2 MVP seasons, 2 championships, but I just don't like the fact that he sort of led Riley on. I felt like if you're gonna, bring in Lee Jenkins to Las Vegas, and you've already pretty much decided why even have Pat Riley, and you're not going to tell him. And I think that did impact how Pat Riley acted in the beginning of the summer. I mean, when you look at who he drafted and acting like a team that was over the cap and signing McRoberts and Danny Granger, maybe if he knew that he'd have all that cap space, he wouldn't have signed those 2 players, and we tried to go for a bigger name free agent. But at the same time, I mean, I think that Deng is a good fit. You have to fill in that small forward spot. So overall, I don't think Miami came out looking too bad. Obviously, when you lose the second best, or the actually the best player in the game, um, you're obviously going to come out a loser in the summer and in the off season. But all things considered, especially when you think about how it was looking like it was a 95% chance that Bosh was going to go to Houston, Pat Riley did make out well. There'll still be a middle of the pack playoff team, and I think that's about the best you can hope for, considering the circumstances that they were in last Friday.
And also, you have to, consider that now the East is wide open. So even if they do come in, I'm thinking maybe a 3 or 4 seed. But really, what other teams? Maybe they're more talented on paper, but the core of the Heat with Birdman returning, of course you got Bosh. Maybe they overpaid a little bit for him, but I mean, what are you going to do? You can't let 2 of the 3 walk out. I think they had to offer him the max to keep him away from Houston. That set everything in motion. You knew Wade was going to come back. I maybe heard a little bit that Chicago was courting him, but once that Bosh signing took place, David, I agree with you that kind of just turned the tide a little bit for Riley and the Heat organization, and I think Luol is a value for that signing. I mean, that's pretty much what he turned down in Chicago, and we only got him for 2 years, and I think that's a major thing to keep that flexibility even a year from now, because a couple of those players even have opt-out options as well. But let's say 2 more years from now, 2016, that puts them in great shape. We see that Riley is obviously a good negotiator. He can seal the deal. And I'm going to be honest with you, I am a little bit troubled. I'm agreeing with what Diego said as well, that the timing of this, when did he know? How did those billboards just magically pop up out of nowhere in Cleveland buildings? Even the Sports Illustrated letter took a long time to craft. That wasn't just something that he just said off the cuff, and they took a picture that night. So the meeting with Dan Gilbert, that was what, a week ago. So, but who knows? Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Bottom line is that the letter is great. It talks about one facet of him wanting to go to Cleveland, and that's going home. But there's so many things that he has to answer for. He really does, as far as why. I mean, after 4 years, this is nothing that he was talking about himself in the pep rally. How are you going to compete for multiple championships if you're leaving after 4 years? 4 years of going straight to the finals. I don't even understand why they couldn't have just, if anything, or sign a similar 2-year deal and stay in Miami. Give Pat Riley a chance to reload. But he wanted to go back to Cleveland.
I get the feeling that it wasn't even so much him wanting to go back to Cleveland so much as him wanting to have more control over the organization and feeling a growing, I don't know, a growing just gap as far as your ideas are concerned. I mean, we've heard a lot of rumors over the last few days about his entourage not getting the kind of respect that he had hoped for. I guess they didn't take him seriously in that regard. I guess everybody from Maverick Carter to Rich Paul, etc. Those guys wanted to be a bigger part of the way the organization was moving forward. We're starting to see some of LeBron's influence even in Cleveland. Just after a few days, he's already pushing Andrew Wiggins out the door to move for Love. And it seems like he wants to be kind of like this de facto GM there. He wants to have much more control over how the organization is run. And so you kind of think that there's a problem with Riley and the way he manages everything, which to the common Heat fan and to most of the team, and you look at the 19 years of success he's had, you kind of have to give Riley, you have to defer to him because he obviously knows what he's doing, but maybe LeBron wanted more control, more power. And so you kind of think that, at least from my perspective, I'm starting to think maybe he's wanted to go to Cleveland ever since he first came on board. It sounded great in the big party in July of 2010 to promise 8 championships, but I'm thinking all along, and he said as much in the letter, that he had always envisioned going back to Cleveland, although I always thought it was going to be at the end of his career. But maybe he was just looking forward to doing that a lot sooner than we had expected. I saw a report from Yahoo Sports that he's been, colluding basically for 2 years, kind of getting Cavs management to clear salary cap space. And so, I mean, and we have to assume here that he's been thinking about this for a while. And despite the fact that we think he had a great situation here in Miami, maybe he wanted something completely different than what the Heat were capable of offering.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very interesting facet to this whole thing because he said, I think it was maybe in the mid-season of last year, that he wanted to be on the Mount Rushmore of NBA greats.
Right.
And if you want to do that, you have to win at least 5 or 6 championships. I mean, it may not be a fair standard, but that's the way it is. And now he was saying in the letter, it's going to be a while. We're not ready yet to win. If we just win 1 championship, it seemed like he'd be happy with that. And everyone knows that, Cleveland has not won a championship since the 60s. If he wins a championship there, he's going to have a monument. I think already he's going to have a statue built there. But it is interesting that it seems like he's almost okay with only being a 2 or 3-time NBA champion. And it's interesting when you look at this power move as David said, and that he wants more power, but he's going to a very incompetent brass. And you look at a team that pretty much couldn't find any sort of footing after in the past 4 years. I mean, the only thing that they did was actually win the draft lottery 3 times in 4 years, and one time they completely missed on the pick because they got Anthony Bennett, who had pretty much a lost rookie season. But you look at them signing Andrew Bynum, that didn't work out. Dion Waiters has not worked out. A lot of moves that they've made have not panned out, and they haven't made it to the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, in which you don't even need to be a 500 team to make the playoffs. I mean, the Heat made the playoffs for 2 straight years when their second best player was Jermaine O'Neal and their third best player was Michael Beasley. So you can't even put together a team that's good enough to make it into the 8th seed in the East. So it is interesting. So he's getting more power, but is he losing some of that confidence that he had in Miami so that they know that they could get a Ray Allen and they could sell a Shane Battier? I know people like to talk about how Riley, amnestied Mike Miller, and I do think in hindsight that was a mistake, obviously, but Miller was overpaid at $6 million. And I know that he did play 82 games last year, but if you look at him in Miami, it seemed like he couldn't stay on the court for more than a week and then not get hurt. So, yes, it's easy to point the blame at Riley, but I do think that he may be giving up a little bit more of a competent, well-run NBA franchise to go to this team in which, yes, he will have more power, but can we really trust this new GM, this new coach, and Dan Gilbert, who did write a very ugly letter 4 years ago to really, build a championship core? And are you okay with having one player pretty much run a franchise and not have anyone question that person? Because I think that's maybe something that any franchise should have. You should have competing ideas, new ideas brought to the forefront so that everyone can hopefully come to a better, perspective on it all instead of just having one person's voice go unquestioned.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many facets to this. I think, there's the one level that it's, publicly, it's, I want to go home. There's another subtext there. It's even more powerful. Is power within that organization, and I think also you want to be the good guy. I think maybe that the decision. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe David is right on that. Maybe ever since the decision, he kind of, I don't know if he had second thoughts about the entire thing about coming down to Miami, but definitely caught him off guard. He saw that Nike ad that was like about who he should be and.
Right.
It was like a direct message to his fans, almost, saying he should have done things better. I think maybe that experience, maybe just, I don't know, from an endorsement standpoint, but even still, I mean, he was I mean, he was making so many endorsements as an NBA champion, as being here in Miami. He brought that here, that flavor to his Nike shoes, to everything, to his Sprite drink. So I don't know. I don't know if when you and this happens to not just with athletes, but with rock stars or actors. You surround yourself with your bros instead of your pros, instead of professionals. You get a lot of yes men, and I think a lot of them kind of influenced him maybe into not that he can't think for himself, but it sounded like a good idea, I guess, to go back to Cleveland. But I'm still fixated on when did he make this decision, and yeah, what could have Pat Riley done with all that cap space had he known earlier in this process? Because I don't believe, just like he said that he decided on Miami like the day of the decision.
Yeah.
I don't believe that either.
That's impossible.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't think Wade opted out of those 2 years thinking that he'd have to take a lower salary, just a 2-year deal, which I think we have to say is a very big act of sacrifice that Wade made. You would think that at 32 with his knees, he'd want.
I think Wallace from ESPN, NBA player, has opted out of, has given up for his team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Wade may have thought that if he opted out along with Bosh and James, they were all gonna maybe take less money. So I think, I mean, this is just my own speculation, but I do think maybe if Pat Riley would have caught a really top tier free agent in the first couple of days, maybe like a Kyle Lowry, maybe it would have been enough to sway him to stay. But I mean, we saw this with Woj saying, very early on that Rich Paul was really pushing a Cleveland move, and Woj is one of the best people out there, so I'm not going to question that. I think I don't know when this actually was decided, but it does seem interesting. I don't know if Wade would have opted out of those 2 years and $41 million if he thought that he'd have to take just a 2-year deal at an even lower salary. But I don't know.
So theoretically, would you have preferred the Heat? Let's say they knew, and they go after Kyle Lowry with that money. Would you have been fine with them signing? Because you're not going to be able to sign a player like that or Gortat for 2 years.
Yeah.
So you would have been fine with just skipping 2016 and loading right now, or do you prefer now that they do have that flexibility a year or 2 years from now? Maybe go after a bigger name.
So I would say
like
no,
LeBron or Durant.
I think that you have to get you would have had to have gotten a small forward, and I think Deng was a former All-Star. I am a little concerned about maybe the minutes that he's played over the last few years, but I do think that you're only getting him on a 2-year deal, maybe even only 1 year, because that second year is a player option. So he's a really good player, helps Miami Heat as a genuine two-way player. The one thing that I would say is maybe not like a Gortat, but maybe they moved that $7 million that they spent on McRoberts and Granger on another player. Now I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, obviously we can't even talk about this for the whole time because we have to look at what the Heat actually have instead of what could have been. And I do think that they were a team that was looking at McRoberts, and he does have shooting ability as a 7-footer. He can pass the ball well. He does some good things. The thing that I was a little bit shocked about, even when it happened, was Danny Granger's. Just because he hasn't played a whole lot in the last few years, I don't really know if he has a lot in the tank. And it would have been something that Riley has done a couple times, too much if you ask me. But it's a matter of getting a name instead of getting a player who can mold into something. So he cuts Patrick Beverly in the 2010-2011 training camp, and then signs Eric Dampier, Jawan Howard, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, etc. People who have names, but they were already at the end of their careers, weren't really going to do anything. So that move is a little bit strange to me. But I don't think, I mean, I think that the Heat didn't really end up in as worse position as they could have, especially when they didn't really know from the beginning.
I'm curious because you make the Beverly cut seem like a big deal, and we look at it, because hindsight is 2020. But
Yeah.
how do we know he would have developed had he stayed here? I think you can't. I mean, it's always one of those situations where you never know what the path that he could have taken. He could have stayed here, been stashed on the bench, and not developed into the player that he is now.
Yeah. I just think that I'd rather have an unproven second-round pick than Eric Dampier on the bench. If they're both going to be on the bench, I'd rather have it be someone who can become better than someone who we know isn't going to turn into anything more than he is right now.
For the record, I saw him play in Vegas in Summer League in 2010, and I thought he was great already back then. So that's just my 2 cents on Patrick Beverley. But they do have a youth movement now a little bit. Matt's joining us right here now. Matt, how's it going?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. Welcome aboard. We were just talking about right now, among other things. I was just getting into this kind of a youth movement that the Heat have with Shabazz. Do you think maybe James Ennis actually, cracks the rotation, gives the Heat some minutes, or do you think they're going to have that temptation to play like the older veterans, like a Danny Granger? If you want to jump in and give your take on that.
Absolutely. Well, I've watched Ennis a little bit in Summer League, and I think he's a pretty solid player. He's got a good jump shot. He can connect from deep. He has a lot of work to do on defense, from what I've seen. And so I think, knowing Spoelstra's mindset, I think if anything, that's what's going to halt him from playing Ennis over Granger, is the fact that he commits dumb fouls. Sometimes he gets lost a little bit, and so I don't know. I see the direction that he going a little bit more with the youth movement, but I mean, they signed Granger for a reason. They didn't back out of it. They stayed with that commitment, and so I definitely see Ennis as a guy that's going to have to earn his minutes, especially if you're going to say he's playing behind Dang and Granger. He's going to have to do some pretty unique things in order to crack that rotation. As far as Napier, I have not been impressed at all in his summer league play. It's actually been really disappointing. He's had terrible shooting nights, a lot of turnovers. He hasn't done anything. He's made some nice passes, but I think he has a lot of work to do to move himself up past Chalmers and Cole, because he can only play the point guard position in the league. And so, man, I want to say they're going to go young, but I think it's going to take those guys a little bit of time to crack the rotation and get some playing time.
And really, are the Heat a win now team again with the talent that they've amassed, and the East is wide open? What do you think, David?
Do I think they're a win now team? Yeah, I think so. You have to take into consideration Riley's future. He's getting up in years, but he strikes me as the kind of guy who wants to leave something stable in place. I mean, clearly in the front office, that Nicky Harrison's going to take over. Nick Harrison, whatever you want to call him, is going to take over at some point for Riley. But I think he wants to leave something in place, so I see him sticking around for a few more years. Who knows if even the young players who are currently on the roster will still be there 2-3 years down the line. I think he's always been committed to winning. I don't think he's ever really cared too much about bringing up a youth movement. So, I mean, if he's looking at these players now as being possible contributors, that's one thing, but I don't think he sees them as being a core part of the team moving forward. That's never been his MO, and I don't see that being the case now, especially because he's made this major financial commitment to Bosch and Wade, and even though these are short-term contracts, at least in Wade's case, you want to make sure you get the most out of the current roster, and that means winning now.
Yeah, and as far as me, I think that if the Heat do want to attract a top-flight free agent in 2016, they're going to need to show that they can, rebound from this really devastating loss that they've just had. And so I do think that they do want to show that there's still a championship culture, a winning culture. And so I do think that they are going to try to make the playoffs, hopefully make this second round. I think that the East is going to have a lot of teams that are going to win maybe between 55 and 45 games. I don't know if you'll see a team win 60 games, which is really the exciting part about it, but it is going to be very, very competitive. We just saw the Hornets sign Lance Stevenson, and so that makes the seventh seed last year maybe a couple spots up. Indiana is probably down a few slots. But the thing about Ennis that I think is interesting is that Pat Riley has not gotten a backup 2 yet. And Wade, although I don't know if he'd be as if they're going to have him sit out as much, considering they don't have really a championship contending team that they know that they want to save Wade for the last 2 rounds. Maybe James Ennis plays that backup 2, or maybe Granger plays the 2 and Ennis plays the 3, because the Heat still do not have a backup 2 who can really play those minutes. I mean, even if Wade is going to be healthy, you don't want him playing like 38, 40 minutes like he did when he was young. So I think Ennis may get some minutes just because Wade is not going to be playing 45 minutes a game. He's going to be taking off some games, and he's going to be being on the bench, especially early in the season. So I do wonder if Ennis, who has played very well in the Summer League, is athletic, can shoot the three-pointer, if he's going to be in those second-unit lineups, only because there isn't anyone there yet. I don't know if Pat Riley will go after another 2 guard. I think people are talking about Ray Allen going to the Cavaliers. But I think Ennis could crack playing time just because there is that backup 2 spot that's pretty much wide open right now. I mean, James Jones even left.
And going along with that, Matt, what do you think as far as what Diego's is talking about? We have maybe 11 or 12 players on the roster.
Yeah.
What can the Heat go for these final 2 or 3 signings?
I definitely do not see Ennis as a viable option at shooting guard. I think he can do it. But if you're talking about a team that you want to be successful, that's just not going to work. I definitely see Riley, any type of minimum type guy. I mean, I think Roger Mason Jr. would fit in that spot better than James Ennis at this point. I like Ennis. I think he has a lot to bring. But he's a pretty tall, lanky dude. I think he would struggle with that at times. Miami's already, they've already hit their salary cap. So, if we're going to say they're not in win now, then Pat Riley's really screwed himself over. And so I definitely think they're going for something here. Then I see the couple of guys that I thought that Riley would try to grab just got nabbed the last 2 days with Brandon Rush and Rodney Stuckey. I would have liked to have seen those guys a possibility. They just got deals. I know Rush got a little bit more. I'm not sure what Stuckey got. I know it was a 1-year deal, but there's got to be something out there. I have to assume that, knowing Riley, it's not going to be someone young. It's going to be somebody old. Even if it's someone that can take Wade's time, when he's off and resting a little bit. His roster is not complete. I don't know what he's going after, but I definitely think he knows what he's doing, right? So we have to trust that he's got some sort of plan.
David, what about you as far as how comfortable are you with Chris Bosh being the number 1 option on this team? Because as Matt said, there's only going to be maybe some veteran minimum signings. They're not going to be huge impact players. So this is pretty much that core that we're going to see here. You might see a player get amnestied or something like that, but Boozer also went to LA.
Mm-hmm.
So are you looking at somebody like that, maybe a power player, or 2 guard like that, and can that kind of a player, really help out the Heat that much? Because you're really looking at Bosh, Wade, Deng. That starting 5 is going to have to put up a lot of production up there.
I think McRoberts' height helps out a little bit. I mean, I know he's a little undersized as far as a power forward, but he is 6'10". I mean, he can provide some rebounding there. I mean, I don't think he's going to be able to match up against some of the bigger, power forwards out there, but he can help
Or some
out.
forearm strength too.
Yeah. As far as Bosch as the number one option, I really am concerned about it because he hasn't been for so long, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't shown that potential in the past, obviously. I mean, he was the star in Toronto. That's where he was before he came down here, and his game has continued to evolve, so it's going to be interesting to see if he's capable of doing it again. Is he going to have that kind of dominating effect that he used to have? Is he going to be more aggressive? We've seen it in spurts over the past 4 years. Certainly he's capable. I mean, that's the whole problem, is that he's always been able to dominate. He's got a great game. I loved a lot of the times when he would just put the ball down and drive to the hoop. He's got a great spin move for a man his size. So, I mean, he can still get 20-something plus points per game. It's just whether or not he's actually going to be committed to doing so. I guess there's no choice at this point for him. I mean, he's got the big contract. He's been given the mantle of the top option as far as the team is concerned, so now he has to go out there and live up to that contract. And from everything we've heard from him, which has been pretty sparing considering he's still in Ghana or wherever the hell he is, he hasn't said much, but what he said has been the right things that we want to hear from a fan base. We want to hear that he's committed, that he's ready to step up and meet the challenge. So I'm optimistic but cautious at the same time that he can be the number one option.
I mean, yeah, I think he can be it. I mean, we've seen, even as a member of the Heat, when one member of the Big Three has been out, he's really taken it upon himself and had 30-point games or game-winning shots. So I think he can do it offensively. What my question is are the Heat going to continue playing him at that center spot and have him be the anchor of the defensive system that they've created, while still having Bosch be a 20 to 25-point scorer? I mean, Zach Lowe had a very good column during the playoffs last year in which Bosch pretty much said that the reason why he doesn't play back to the basket really that much anymore compared to his days as a Raptor is because he really does so much for the Heat on defense. He has to be the person who's going to be chasing around those pick and rolls, and he has to be the shot blocker. He has to cover so much ground as that center, and I question whether he can do that and be the 25-point scorer that the Heat need him to be, especially when their best offensive player has just left. So I think it may be interesting to see if Pat Riley goes out and gets a true center. I mean, we know that Pat Riley did say, among other things, in his press conference that he thinks that Eric Spoelstra needs to reinvent himself. Now, does that mean that he wants to go a more traditional route instead in terms of his starting five? I think that's an interesting point. But I also think, as I mentioned earlier, the backup two guard is really the other glaring open spot for me, is just the fact that they have these 12 guys. I mean, Haslam, I think he's a great person, but he's really not going to be someone who you want to throw out there for more than a few minutes a night. And the Heat still look a little small to me. The fact that you have Bosch, who's a lanky guy, McRoberts really can't play the five, Haslam, and then I don't know, maybe the Heat are going to bring back Greg Oden, but are you really going to count on Greg Oden to be the player who can maybe play for up to 15, 20 minutes a night when he didn't even play at all in the playoffs, or if he did, it was only in blowouts? So those would be the two spots that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Center, if he does anything, or if he's hoping to keep Bosch at that spot, and maybe Bosch can do it, but I don't know if he just has the if he can just if he just has to use up all that effort on the defensive end of the floor and then be the top option on offense, and then that, as I said earlier, backup two guard.
Matt, what do you think as far as Bosch being the number one option? But does Spoelstra have to reinvent himself? How do you replace a player that did so much on both ends of the court?
Yeah, I think Spoelstra has to change everything, honestly. That entire offense was built around the versatility of LeBron. He created nearly everything in that offense, in my opinion. I have a cautious approach to Bosch being. I'm similar to David. I think that it can work, but I think that Spoelstra needs to change the way that ball moves. Now, here's the positive part about it. Assuming that Luol Deng and Josh McRoberts find themselves in the starting lineup, you've added two players who are extremely gifted at sharing the basketball. Both Deng and McRoberts know how to move the ball around. It does not stick in their hands. And I think if Wade can start to play that way as well, I mean, I think if we're all honest, Dwayne, at times can get the ball stuck in his hands, much like LeBron would at times, then we could see a much different type of offense. Both McRoberts and Bosch are, face to the basket type players, like to start the ball from maybe the elbow or the top of the key. And if you have both of those guys pairing together, I think the offense can look a lot different. What I'm concerned about is this aspect of, hey, when we need a basket, Bosch, go get us a basket. I have a lot of concerns about him going one-on-one against the guys that he would go one-on-one against. Maybe that still falls in Dwayne's pocket of responsibility of create something for us, but I think Bosch can be. I think he can be a 20 and 9 guy for us, and I think that would be a success for us. I don't see him being a 25 guy. I just don't. I mean, even LeBron was a 26.5 guy, and how gifted he is, even though he had to share the ball a little bit more. I mean, that's hard to do, and so I'm cautiously. I think that it can work, but I do think that Spoelstra has his work cut out for him, changing the offense a bit, letting that ball move around a little bit more, and those guys playing with each other a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I think the Heat have, some injury health concerns really with Wade. How is his knee going to hold up this season? The Heat really can't afford to have him sit out that many games as last season. So you have that. Luol Deng, maybe I'm not too worried about that because he won't be playing under Tibbs, and who plays his players too much during the regular season. That's the way it is. And I think McRoberts does give that a little bit of playmaking in that position that is kind of rare for a team to have him and Bosch that are both willing passers, and they're big men too. I mean, that's kind of what you want in a system like this. That I don't know if they're going to completely reinvent themselves, but I think like Matt says, I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, there's really no other way. As far as how far do you think the Heat will go? Let's go around the table with that. David, what do you think ultimately? What can the Heat do? Let's say that there's not many health concerns, that they're relatively healthy. On paper, what do you think?
I think they're still a minor piece away from being an Eastern Conference finalist. I think they still need to. I think to Diego's point, they still need probably a true center if they want to be able to compete, because they can't afford to put that much pressure on Bosch at the center position. So I think they're still going to need somebody to go out there and contribute in that way. I don't know how they'll get him. I mean, we trust in Riley to get the job done, but I'm not sure if he can, because his hands are kind of tied with the contracts that he currently has committed to. So I guess if you're putting me on the spot, I would say that they could be probably a 4 seed, and they could make it to the second round before they lose, I guess, to whoever they face in the second round. Maybe they could go as far as the Eastern Conference Finals, but that would be wildly successful, and I think a little unlikely at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I think where the Heat are now is about where they were in the 08-09 and 09-10 seasons. You have a really good Wade, but then, as I said earlier, you have Jermaine O'Neal, or I guess at the beginning of that season it was Marion, and then you also have Michael Beasley. You have some other players who had short contracts at that time, and I think it's the same case here. You do have a diminished Wade, but you also have a Bosch, really, who's I think is 30 years old, and I think he will age well in the NBA. I think that the Heat might take a page out of the Dallas Mavericks book in terms of maybe creating an offense around a 7-footer who can shoot threes, but also can shoot at the elbow as well. So I do think they'll probably end up in the fourth or fifth spot in the East, and probably, if all goes well, win that first round, which is something that they did not do in '09 or 2010. So you want to win that first round and just hopefully go from there. But I do not think that they are a championship contending team or an Eastern Conference finalist team, just because I think that they still have a little bit that they have to do. But I think you could say that about any team. I mean, if the Cavaliers don't get Kevin Love, to me, they still have a lot of questions in terms of, can Kyrie Irving at 21 really be that second option? I mean, the Heat didn't even win in their first year when you have three guys all in their prime, and now you have a rookie in Wiggins and someone who's still very young and still needs to learn a lot about defense in Irving. Same thing with the Bulls. I mean, is Derrick Rose going to be healthy for the first time in pretty much 3 years? He wasn't even that healthy in that lockout-shortened year. And then he got hurt in the first game of the playoffs, and then pretty much hasn't played not much at all since then. Same thing with the Pacers. What's going to happen with Hibbert? Is he going to be back to that player he was before the second half of the season last year? How are they going to do without Stevenson, who was probably their best off-the-bounce guy? So I think there's a lot of questions for every team, and I think for the Heat it's just a matter of trying to win, about 45. If you can get to 50 wins, that'd be amazing, but just try to compete, especially now. You can't take those nights off against the Bucks in, March or whatever. Every game counts, and they're going to need it because everything is going to be about that seeding, because as I said earlier, I think there's going to be a lot of teams bunched up. I don't think you we'll see a team that's going to win 60 games. I mean, if the Cavs get Kevin Love, apparently there has been some movement in terms of giving up Wiggins, possibly in a trade. But I think unless that happens, you would see a lot of bunched up teams in the East really fighting for position. And I think that the Heat are very much in that mix, and they'll still be a very strong team, even without the best player in the game.
Yeah, I think Diego pretty much covered most of it there. I agree with a lot of that. I'm still pretty optimistic about the team. I think most of it comes from the question marks from the other three teams that Diego talked about there. Listen, I'm not sold on Chicago. I know a lot of people are picking them as a top part of the East. When you're talking about Derrick Rose, who hasn't played a full, up to his capacity in 3 years. And I'm also not sold on a 34-year-old Pau Gasol in for Carlos Boozer as what's pushing them over the top in the Eastern Conference. Let alone, if you watch much Bulls games, Gasol's probably not going to be in for the final 8 minutes of any game this season, with him going with Noah and Gibson. And so to say that he's that much of a difference maker, I just have a hard time buying into that. Lance Stevenson is a huge loss for the Pacers. A huge loss. I know he's only a 14 points a game scorer. I watched a lot of Pacer games this year, and he was the heart of that team for much of the seasons. The energy, the tenacity that he brought. Rodney Stuckey will not replace that. Rodney Stuckey can score, but I think that hurts in the end. It doesn't destroy him. But I think they went from being a clear-cut favorite in the East to back in part of this pack of what's going to happen with the top three. I agree with everything Diego said about Cleveland. And so with those three teams, the one that I am concerned about is Washington. I think they're gonna make an improvement this year. They got the fifth seed last year, beat Chicago in the first round. And they brought everybody back except for Ariza. They replaced him with Pierce. they're a tough team. And so I see Miami's ceiling at maybe the 3 seed if things go lucky. Let's say Rose doesn't turn out to be an MVP type player. I see Miami, if they stay healthy and they're bringing back so many of their guys, they can gel together. They may be able to get to 3, but they could also fall all the way down to 6. If Washington surpasses them, with Brook Lopez being healthy, I don't know what Brooklyn's ceiling is. But the bottom line is, I think Miami could fall anywhere in those lines. I'd be very, very disappointed if they didn't get out of the first round. With the experience that they have, the money that they're paying both Bosch and Wade, that should be an expectation. And as far as seeding goes, if they find themselves in a second round matchup with Indiana or Washington,
Or Cleveland.
I don't want to talk about that, but I could see it. I could see a scenario where they make themselves way back to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think we would all be a little loony to have any type of finals expectation out of this roster, unless Riley does a little bit more magic, and then some other chips fall with these teams and things go wrong. The one thing we haven't talked about is the target off of Miami's back in the regular season.
Oh yeah.
The guys talked a lot about throughout the year that every game everybody's giving them their best shot. Everywhere they go, it's sold out, and all that kind of stuff. Does that go away? Was that all with LeBron, or because they're a 4-time finals appearance team, are they still a little bit hated with most of their guys coming back? Is that still there? How much of that is gone, and do they get a little bit of breaks here and there with teams not overlooking them, but maybe not giving them the attention that they had when LeBron was there? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know either. I guess that's what we'll see. But yeah, that is an interesting point. David, you seem to strongly disagree about that. You think that?
No. In fact, I strongly agree with it. I think.
Well, no, disagree that you think that the Heat will have a target off the back.
Yeah. No, I think. I don't think anybody will expect much from this team without them. So they may even get some pity passes along the way because they won't be taken as seriously until maybe later on the season if they somehow manage to win a bunch of games that people didn't expect them to. Somehow they start eclipsing that 40-win mark, halfway through the season or near halfway through. Then that's all of a sudden when you start paying attention to them and realizing they're a serious contender. But I think without LeBron there, I think a lot of people won't take this team as seriously because they've already started to discount Wade. They don't look at Bosch as a serious threat, and who knows if anybody else is going to step up and play a major contributing role. So I think to Matt's point, I think a lot of people won't be taking Miami as seriously, and I think that will probably translate into a few extra wins here and there throughout the course of the season.
All right, cool. Any final thoughts, Matt? We didn't get a chance to hear your thoughts on the decision. If you could maybe try to summarize a little bit of what you thought of as far as just maybe immediate reactions as far as that goes.
Well, hey, did you guys talk about the article that Stu Gatz wrote? Did you guys touch on that? Anybody read that?
No. I read it.
I read it.
Yeah, well, listen. If you guys listen to 790 much, Stu Gatz had an interesting approach to it. Everybody is kind of pushing on this, be appreciative of the last 4 years, and you should be thankful for what he did and the experience that it was. And that was my initial reaction. Listen, it was very eerie to your girlfriend. You get word that your girlfriend's going to break up with you, so you prepare for it emotionally. That's kind of how I felt. The writing was on the wall for about a week. Every sign was pointing towards Cleveland, that it seemed like. And so, for me personally, it was when I heard it, I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. Everything was pointing towards that. And so I think the thing that surprises me the most is just the fact that he walked out on a team that went to the finals 4 straight years. And when you look at the Spurs, who had lost the year before, and they come back and they're more motivated and they get it done, it just hurts to know that they weren't a bad team. They had flaws. They weren't perfect. the fact that he walked out on a team that was so successful, for a team that had maybe one or two players at the time that had been even in the playoffs. Well, maybe Anderson Varejao was about the only player on that roster who'd been in the playoffs, and he's walking into that. I applaud LeBron for what he's done for his image with this coming home. I think he's taken the pressure off of himself from going from a guy who, if he would have stayed in Miami, it would have continued every single year. It's championship or bust. And now LeBron has walked into, if I get one championship in Cleveland, I'm a hero. This is a success. It's just completely changed our expectations for LeBron. So I don't know. So going back to Stugatz's article, he wrote this article about, we are allowed to be angry, allowed to be upset. And if you look at the scenario surrounding it, it's not completely acceptable to say LeBron did it the right way. He did things eerily similar in 2010. The Cavs and the Heat didn't find out, or I suppose Cleveland may have known, but didn't find out about the decision until the SI article popped up on Twitter, and Stugatz made it seem like he was pretty sure LeBron had been planning this for a long time. And so, no, my thoughts are, it was great to have him, disappointed, but at the same time, it's his decision, man. If he wants to go home, who are we to blame a guy who wants to go and be around his family and play for his hometown? Would have loved to seen him continue, pursue championships, multiple, but, it is what it is, and Miami will be fine without him. So.
All right. Well said. David, do you have any final thoughts as well?
No, I think we've covered a lot, and to be honest with you, one of the things that I'm actually looking forward to is seeing how this team molds without LeBron around. I don't know. I wouldn't go so far as to say we got complacent as a team, but yeah, there was a little bit of that. I mean, the whole narrative of flipping the on-off switch got a little tiring about the regular season. So I'm kind of curious to see, how this team responds. I posted something earlier this week about how each player and the front office has a lot to prove, and they're certainly motivated. And so I'm hoping that Spoelstra will face what could arguably be his greatest challenge as a coach and finds a way to light a fire under every team, how he continues. Maybe he'll reinvent himself. Maybe he'll find a way to maximize everybody's talents, even though we don't know if this roster is complete or near completion at this point. But I'm looking forward to seeing how he blends all these pieces, and this could be the making of a great season. I mean, if not a championship season, still one that the fans and the organization can be really proud of, simply because, it means a lot to lose a player of the talent and caliber of LeBron James, and so how we move forward from that will be a defining moment for the Heat.
Yeah, and I think, going back to the Stugatz article, Stephen A. Smith did say that part of the reason, and I think we did touch on this at the outset, but just so Matt knows, I mean, we did talk about how there was some talk about LeBron being upset that his entourage was not getting the perks and the treatment. They didn't get to sit right behind the Heat bench and other things. And it was interesting for me to read this because I know that this is what Woj was saying in his first season in Miami, that you have Dan Gilbert pretty much giving him free reign of the team, and then Pat Riley tried to impose some discipline, and LeBron was thankful for it. He's a better person for that. And then to hear this stuff crop up again, it was like, are we playing the same whole deal? Is it just about, having your boys run the team? I mean, we know that his mom, at least, I saw her a couple times, in the team walkway to when they were going to halftime or after a game, that she was right there. So I do think that they maybe gave some access to his family that maybe they didn't give to his friends. But it makes it seem like LeBron and maybe his inner circle is a little bit of a set of prima donnas, and they want to have the red carpet laid out for them, which I think when you are a multi-million-dollar, 20-year-old or in your 20s athlete, you could expect that. But I think it was interesting to see all that stuff come up. And I think as far as the Heat, I agree with David. If you were to ask any Heat fan what was one of their favorite seasons ever, I know that you can't discount these last 4 years, but I think they would absolutely say that the 03-04 team, when you had Caron Butler, Lamar Odom, Eddie Jones, and D. Wade as a rookie, really leading that team to a surprise playoff berth and winning that first round against the Charlotte Hornets, that was a very exciting team to watch. And hopefully that's a similar team. And, I don't think that the Shaq trade was a mistake. You got a ring out of it. You got a 2-year window, and they won in the second year. But I think this could be the start of a team that does pretty well, exceeds expectations, and then it is about, as we've mentioned, waiting for that 2016 window. And if that can be, if these next 2 years can be sort of a prelude to the next championship contending team that Pat Riley has built. He's already built 3 teams that have really won, or at least contended for NBA championships. You had the Zoe and Tim Hardaway years. One year they won 61 games, and they were the first seed in 99, but then they lost in the first round during that lockout year. And then in the Shaq Wade years, and then you have the Big Three era. So I think he's done it 3 times, and I think that in 2 years we may see another Heat championship core that he's going to be building. So I think the Heat are in a good spot. They're still one of the best NBA franchises in the NBA. Only, I think, 5 teams have won 3 titles. So I think it's now a matter of still having a good product out on the floor and just waiting for this next run. I mean, it's interesting because other teams like to, pretty much throw away 1, 2, 3 years in the hopes of getting the top pick and then having a good team from there. But that's not how Riley thinks, and that was sort of what you saw in that statement that Pat Riley put out when he said, yes, we are sad to see James go, but, we've always been a championship team and we've always been a world-class franchise, and the Heat have won 3 titles and been in the running for it for many others, and we've done it and we'll do it once more. And so I think that was sort of that statement that we'll see something happen pretty soon. And as a fan of a team, I'm fine with that. I mean, imagine if we were fans of the Kings or the Bucks or the Magic, who haven't really had a lot to deal with. So I think the Heat are in good hands in spite of what was a very, very devastating blow. And I think that it just speaks to Pat Riley as a person, that he was able to quickly turn around from one of the most he was blindsided. I think when he heard that he was on a plane ride with Wade and they were going to Miami, I think he thought that he was going to stay, but I think it just is a testament to who he is as a salesman that he was able to get Deng to sign for those 2 years. And so we'll just move forward from here.
All right, yeah, we'll definitely be watching. We're going to see how the Heat respond. We're going to see how, there's so many things that we still haven't even touched upon. And we're just going to have to do this again over the off season. And it was great having you guys on board. And hopefully we can do this again. And we'll see, maybe we can talk once this roster is kind of a little bit more set. Still have a couple more signings probably to do. See what really happens as far as training camp goes, and how these young guys are going to respond. How's Wade going to respond? How is the Heat going to respond to being kind of like underdogs? Really, it's going to be somewhat refreshing to see. I think we've all talked about that at one point, that the teams aren't really going to, maybe they'll sleep on the Heat, but I think the Heat will definitely show quickly that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the East, and I think it is wide open. And so, all right, guys, well, once again, thanks for joining me, and we'll do this again real soon.
Thanks.
Thanks. Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
All right.